You need to understand something before tomorrow arrives. This is not just another moon transit. This is not another passing astrological headline that disappears in a few days. Tomorrow, the moon conjunct Chiron is not here to shake your world loudly. It's here to shift it permanently. And the reason this alignment matters so deeply is because it doesn't target your surface life. It targets the places you healed quietly, and the places you didn't even realize were still tender. Tomorrow, something subtle but undeniable begins. The moon moves into alignment with Chiron, the wounded healer, and when these two meet, they don't create chaos. They create awareness. And awareness is far more powerful than disruption. Because once you see something clearly, you cannot unsee it. Once you feel a truth land in your body, you cannot go back to pretending it wasn't there. This alignment sparks 3 spiritual awakening energy shifts for your zodiac sign, and no matter where Chiron sits in your chart, you will feel at least one of these shifts moving through your life. The first awakening is the realization that you are no longer who you were when the wound was fresh. And that realization changes everything. There was a version of you that carried pain like armor, a version that braced for rejection, a version that expected to be misunderstood, a version that felt like survival was a daily requirement. Tomorrow, under this Moon-Chiron conjunction, something inside you recognizes that the survival era has ended. You are not fighting the same battles. You are not navigating the same confusion. The pressure you still feel may not be coming from your present life at all. It may be an echo. And when this transit peaks, many of you will suddenly notice that you've been preparing for storms that are no longer forming. That is the first awakening. The storm already passed. You survived it. And the version of you who survived it is stronger, steadier, and far more self-aware than you give yourself credit for. This realization won't come with fireworks. It will show up quietly. Maybe you respond calmly in a situation that once would have triggered you. Maybe you notice that criticism doesn't hit as deeply. Maybe you realize you didn't overthink something that would have consumed you months ago. That's not coincidence. That's integration. That's healing becoming embodied. The second spiritual awakening energy shift tomorrow brings is clarity in relationships, and this one may feel almost surgical in its precision. The moon governs your emotional perception. Chiron governs old wounds tied to rejection, abandonment, feeling unseen. When they meet, emotional fog lifts. Suddenly, you see dynamics for what they are. You understand someone's tone without them explaining it. You sense motives before they are revealed. But this is not paranoia. It's discernment born from healing. When you have healed enough, you stop projecting your past onto people. And when you stop projecting, you start perceiving accurately. Tomorrow, many of you will feel that shift. You will realize you don't need to chase validation anymore. You don't need to decode mixed signals endlessly. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. And the most powerful part of this awakening is that it doesn't make you colder. It makes you calmer. You stop reacting to manipulation because you see it immediately. You stop trying to fix people who misunderstand you because you recognize it's not your responsibility. This is where empowerment begins, not in proving yourself, not in winning arguments, but in no longer feeling destabilized by someone else's inability to meet you where you are. The moon conjunct. Chiron teaches emotional sovereignty, and once that lands, you move differently, you speak differently, you choose differently. The third awakening is deeply internal. It's about self-forgiveness. Chiron carries the imprint of wounds that shaped you. The moon carries memory. When they align, you may revisit a memory or a pattern, but not to relive it, to release it. You may suddenly understand why you reacted the way you did in the past. You may feel compassion for the version of you who didn't know better. You may recognize that what you once labeled as weakness was actually survival. This is the moment where shame dissolves. And when shame dissolves, freedom expands. Because shame keeps you anchored to old identities, it whispers that you're still that insecure person, that still wounded person, that still confused version. Tomorrow's energy interrupts that narrative. It shows you that growth has already happened, that evolution has already occurred, that you are not the same person who made those choices. And once you truly see that, you stop punishing yourself internally. For each zodiac sign, this may manifest differently. Aries may feel it in confidence. Taurus may feel it in stability. Gemini may feel it in communication. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for daily cosmic insights, astrology updates, and spiritual guidance, because the universe always has a message for you. Cancer may feel it in emotional security. Leo may feel it in self-expression. Virgo may feel it in self-worth. Libra may feel it in boundaries. Scorpio may feel it in trust. Sagittarius may feel it in belief systems. Capricorn may feel it in responsibility. Aquarius may feel it in identity. Pisces may feel it in intuition. But the theme remains the same. Healing that has been quietly unfolding now becomes visible. And here's what makes this transit so powerful. It doesn't demand action. It reveals transformation that already occurred. It shows you the strength you built when no one was watching. It highlights the resilience you developed during nights you thought would break you. It brings emotional evidence that you are further along than your mind believes. Tomorrow is not about dramatic breakthroughs. It's about subtle confirmations. It's about waking up and realizing something feels lighter without knowing exactly why. It's about responding instead of reacting. It's about choosing peace without forcing it. And that kind of awakening is lasting. So if tomorrow feels calm, don't dismiss it. If tomorrow feels reflective, lean into it. If tomorrow brings a quiet sense of closure, trust it. Because Moon Conjunct Chiron is not loud. It is precise. It does not push. It aligns. It does not force healing. It reveals it. And when you notice that you no longer need to prove yourself, no longer need to brace for impact, no longer need to replay old narratives just to feel prepared, that is the shift. That is the awakening. That is the energy moving through your zodiac sign. Stay aware of what feels different. Stay aware of what feels steady. Stay aware of what no longer triggers you the way it once did. Those are not small things. Those are milestones. Tomorrow, you are not becoming someone new. You are recognizing who you already became. And that recognition changes how you walk into every room, every conversation, every decision moving forward. If this message resonates even slightly, pay attention, because resonance is recognition, and recognition is awakening. There is something else about this Moon Conjunct Chiron energy that most people won't talk about, and it may be the most transformative piece of all. Tomorrow doesn't just reveal healing. It reveals where you've outgrown environments that once defined you. Sometimes, spiritual awakening is not about gaining something. It's about losing attachment to what no longer fits. And this alignment has a way of gently exposing misalignment. You may walk into a familiar space and suddenly feel different inside it. You may listen to someone speak and realize their words no longer resonate the way they once did. You may notice that conversations you used to tolerate now feel draining. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. The moon governs your emotional comfort. Chiron governs the wound that shaped your comfort patterns. When they meet, You start recognizing where you settled because you were still healing. You begin to see where you accepted less because you were afraid of being alone. You start understanding that some environments were necessary during your growth phase, but they are not meant for your expansion phase. This is subtle. No explosions, no dramatic exits, just a quiet internal shift where your nervous system no longer relaxes in spaces it once called home. And that awareness is sacred, because it means you're no longer operating from old pain. You're operating from present clarity. You may also feel a strange pull toward solitude tomorrow. Not isolation, solitude. There's a difference. Isolation comes from fear. Solitude comes from self-trust. When you begin trusting your own emotional processing, you no longer need constant noise around you. The moon, conjunct Chiron, creates a moment where silence feels productive instead of uncomfortable. If you find yourself reflecting deeply, let it happen. If you feel drawn to journaling, walking, or simply sitting with your thoughts, that's the alignment working through you. This is not a time to force outward action. It's a time to let internal rearrangement complete itself. And something powerful happens when you stop forcing healing and allow healing to reveal itself. You begin to see that you are not broken. You were becoming. Now here's where the energy intensifies in a way that may surprise you. This transit can trigger emotional memories, but not to hurt you, to show you contrast. You may briefly remember a time when you felt small, a time when someone's words deeply wounded you, a moment when you doubted yourself. But instead of feeling the same pain, you'll feel distance, almost like watching a past life version of yourself. That distance is growth. That emotional space between you and the memory is evidence that you integrated the lesson. And when that realization lands, it can feel overwhelming in the best possible way. Chiron's energy often brings up the wound one last time before sealing it, not to reopen it, but to prove that it no longer controls you. The moon acts as the emotional spotlight, illuminating how differently you carry yourself now. You may notice you no longer crave the same validation. You may realize you don't need certain apologies anymore. You may feel neutral about situations that once consumed your mind. And neutrality is powerful, because neutrality means the emotional charge has dissolved. This is the kind of awakening that doesn't need witnesses. No one else may see the shift, but you will feel it internally like a foundation locking into place. And as that foundation stabilizes, something else happens. Your decision-making changes. You stop making choices to avoid pain. You start making choices to pursue alignment. That is a monumental shift. When you are no longer motivated by fear of repeating the past, you become free to create a different future. There is also a collective layer to this moon conjunct Chiron transit that cannot be ignored. Even if this feels deeply personal, the energy is rippling through everyone in different ways. You may notice conversations around healing becoming more common. You may observe people confronting their own emotional patterns. You may sense tension surfacing in relationships where wounds were never addressed. This is not coincidence. Chiron doesn't just work individually, it works collectively. But here's the key difference. Your experience of this energy depends on how much healing you've already done. If you've avoided emotional work, tomorrow may feel uncomfortable. If you've faced your shadows, tomorrow may feel empowering. The transit acts like a mirror. It reflects your current level of integration. And that's why some people will feel destabilized while others feel strengthened. It's not about luck, it's about alignment. For your zodiac sign, pay attention to where this conjunction is activating your chart. Is it touching your house of relationships, career, identity, home? That's where the awakening will feel most concentrated. That's where the emotional recalibration is happening. But regardless of placement, the theme remains the same: emotional maturity. The kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that simply moves with steadiness. And that steadiness is rare, because in a world addicted to chaos, choosing calm is revolutionary. As tomorrow unfolds, remember this: awakening does not always feel like expansion. Sometimes it feels like peace. Sometimes it feels like silence. Sometimes it feels like not reacting. You might wake up expecting something dramatic. Instead, you may experience subtle clarity. And that subtle clarity may be the most powerful shift of all. Moon conjunct Chiron is not here to test you. It's here to confirm you, to confirm your growth, to confirm your resilience, to confirm that the wound no longer defines the story. You are not the pain you carried. You are the wisdom you extracted from it. And once that truth settles into your nervous system, you begin to move through life differently. You don't chase closure, you embody it. You don't demand recognition. You radiate self-recognition. You don't fear misunderstanding. You trust your own clarity. Tomorrow is not about becoming awakened. It's about recognizing that awakening has already been unfolding quietly beneath the surface. Pay attention to what feels lighter. Pay attention to what feels resolved. Pay attention to what no longer hooks you emotionally. Those are the real signs. The moon will move on. Chiron will continue its orbit. But the internal shift that happens when you finally see how far you've come, that stays. And when you realize that your past wounds shaped your strength instead of limiting your future, something profound happens. You stop surviving, you start living, and that is the true spiritual awakening energy shift this transit brings.